For mama, that's
Hi, I'm Bob Frank, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
The fire, redneck, blue collar.
So let's start. Do you remember back in those early days what your ambitions were in music?
What my ambitions were?
Yeah. Going right back.
You mean like, when I made that album in '72 or something?
Yeah.
Well, what were my ambitions? I guess, I don't know. I never was real clear about what my ambitions were. I thought I'd just play music and go around playing music places and writing songs. And, of course, I wanted to, I never envisioned myself being like Johnny Cash or something, because I didn't really play that kind of song. I wasn't like a country music star. I didn't ever think of it like that. More like folk songs or something. I don't know. I wasn't really clear. Maybe if I could have had a band or something, played like Bob Dylan or something. But I don't know. I don't know that I really had very. When that album came out, I thought that's it. I thought, man, this is going to be cool. Now I'm going to be famous for this album. They're going to, and then what I did when they actually had this release party at this place in New York City, Memphis, Kansas City, I didn't really do what I was supposed to do there. I just did what I wanted to do, which was like actually stopped the whole thing before it even got off the ground, because I was I was drunk and stoned and all that, but I was also very belligerent and very opinionated or something. I don't know. I didn't play along with their game. I don't have to play this game. Now, when people hear this album, they're going to like what I do. I didn't really realize they aren't going to be able to hear this album because of what I did. They didn't distribute it anymore. They had already distributed some of them, but after that, they just dropped me off their roles. I didn't even exist for them anymore after that. So basically, it just brought the whole career thing to a halt at that point.
That night at Max's Kansas City, is that a night you've relived in your head a lot through the years?
Is that what?
Is that a night that you've relived a lot in your head during the years? Look back on with any regrets or anything like that?
Oh, do I regret it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can regret it if I want to think in terms of, what could I have done different, or so I can think about that. But I don't really spend any time doing that because it's sort of fruitless to think, any kind of regret. I don't know. Can't waste any time regretting stuff, because where I am right now is really perfect. So I would never got here if I'd have changed anything. If anything went different, I wouldn't be where I am now. And where I am now is very good.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Well, it's not very good music career-wise. I'm not very, nobody really heard of me. I got a few people hearing me here and there, but I'm not popular or famous or rich or anything off of music. So in that sense, that's not what I'm talking about when I say it's really good. I just mean my understanding of things and where my mind is at is in a really good place, which I don't know if I would have been able to do that. If I'd have been really successful back then, I'd probably died, because I was really into drugs and stuff, and if I could have just done that and made a lot of money at it and kept doing it, I don't know if I would have lived through it or not. I don't know. That's nothing you want. If I regret it, I could look at it like that. I don't know. I just look at it different ways. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking too much about it.
The great Jim Dickinson famously described you as the greatest songwriter you've never heard. Is that a label you wear proudly?
the greatest songwriter you never heard?
Yeah.
Jim Dickinson said that, yeah. I grew up with him. I didn't actually grow up with him, but we grew up in the same town, and from like high school on, I was in shows with him all the time and playing in coffee houses and concerts in Memphis and stuff. And he recorded several of my songs. Yeah, I have a great respect for Jim because he always had a real. I just like the way he played music. He was a big influence on me because the way he played music, he was very relaxed, and very like organic, kind of real warm, and just I don't know. It was just really powerful to me, and so that was a big influence on me. And but he always had things like that. He always had coined these little phrases that were. When I told him about that Vanguard thing, he said, "Not a good career move." He could put things in real simple phrases. So yeah, when he said the best songwriter you never heard, I thought that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm proud of it. It's just very descriptive. It's perfect. It's just kind of like nobody has ever heard of me, really. I mean, a few people have. But to say, you're the best one we never heard of, I mean, I don't know, there isn't such thing as the best one, really, but it's just a way of saying it.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I think it's cool. I like it.
You spent some time working at Tree Music Publishing Company as a songwriter?
Yeah, I went there after I got out of the Army. I went to Nashville. I wrote songs for Tree Publishing. They actually gave me a draw, $25 a week, which was unheard of. They never gave anybody a draw. What they do is you write songs, and if you get one recorded and you start making royalties off of it, then you live off your royalties, but they never paid anybody anything ahead of time like that. But I had this friend of mine who wrote for the Tennessean, the National Tennessean. I had a couple of friends. They really were writers on the newspaper, and they went over there and talked to Buddy Killen at Tree and told him a story that convinced him to pay me $25 a week. So that's what I did. I just stayed in Nashville there I was there for 6 months, and then I'd go to California for 6 months, and then I'd go back to Nashville. I did that for 2 or 3 years, just back and forth. I never felt like I fit in Nashville. I never really, it's just, like Dickinson said, Bob went to Nashville and Vietnam. You have to ask him which one was the worst. And it's really because it's so geared. Writing songs there is not really about what kind of songs you would like to write or how well you write songs. It's about writing a song that sounds like the last song that was a hit song.
Yeah.
They crank out songs that will be popular at the time based on what was the last thing that was just popular. I never could do that. I tried to do that a lot. I tried to write songs like that sometimes, and sometimes I didn't even try to do it. I just wrote what I wanted to. But I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. I never figured out how to do that. So I wasn't very successful there doing that. And so then I'd go to California and hang out with the hippies. And, no matter where I was, it just seemed like I wasn't really fit in. When I was with the hippies, I thought, I'm not really a hippie, but I kind of fit in with these guys because they smoke weed and drink beer. And then I go to Nashville and I do the same thing. I really, at that point in my life, I only wanted to do 3 things: drink beer, smoke dope, and write songs. That's all I really wanted to do, and I thought that's all I ever want to do. I don't ever want to do anything else. I think I decided that when I was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
When I was in Vietnam, I took R&R and went to Sydney.
Oh, really?
To Sydney, Australia. And there's a song that's on one of those CDs I sent you about a little event that's called Robbed by a Hooker. It's a story about what I actually, a lot of these songs I write, they're actually true songs. I just take a little story of my life and write a song about it. I mean, that's really what most of them are. I mean, some of them are made up,
Yeah.
Most of them are based on something that happened, and some of them are even literally just exactly what happened. But So I don't know. Anyway, there's that song about Sydney. If it's called "Robbed by a Hooker," it's on one of those albums. It's not actually an album. It's the one I said. It's not really an album. It's just a disc.
The unreleased material.
It was produced and everything and made up to be like an album. But by the time I did all this, I sent it to people and I got all these mixed reactions. Like some people said it's terrible, it's overproduced. Some people said, oh, it's great, and somebody gives a shit about this music. That's when I felt like Van Gogh. I thought I was going to cut my ear off, but my knife wasn't sharp enough.
Looking back at that first record, do you still feel an attachment to those early songs? Or do they seem like another time and another place to you now?
Yeah, that's it. Another time, another place. I still play them. Now, when I go places, I play them. I play not all of them, but I play like the Wino. Let's see. I play that sometimes. Mostly I play Judas Iscariot, Memphis Jail, and Ponder Diamonds. Those are the songs that I've been Trash Truck, before the Trash Truck comes. I mostly play those songs off of that album. Sometimes I play Wino or something. But the thing is, I usually do, actually those songs are pretty good. They held up really well. And Judas Iscariot and Memphis Jail, those songs are still really good, so I have no problem with them. But a lot of the songs on there, I don't know about a lot. I don't know. But really the thing that's kind of aggravating about it or uncomfortable is that that's the album that everybody that likes what I do, that's why they like it, basically, because they heard that album when they were young, and then they played it for their kids or something. So it's the one that has all the attention and the acclaim and all that. But to me, there are better songs on some of the other albums, and I sing better, my voice is better on other albums, and my guitar playing is better on other albums. But the other albums, there's no other songs that have that same impact or effect on people when they listen to them. So that's just kind of how it is. You could go and explain that, try to explain why it's like that, because I was young, something you do when you're young or have more energy and more spontaneity or something like that. But I don't know if that's really what it is. I don't know. I think the reason why people that liked that album when it came out is because they were young and they were looking for something different and they were looking for something unique that only they understood or that that really spoke to them directly. And that album did. It filled that thing that they were looking for. They were looking for something like that. And then they found that Vanguard album back in the 70s and they said, yeah, this is it. Well, then ever since then, it just gets better and better. They listen to it, oh, yeah, that's because it brings back memories or whatever. That's how music is. And it has all that kind of aspects to it. If the same people who like that album so much now just heard that album now, I don't think they would think it was that great. I think what makes it so great to them is the context in which they first heard it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you hear it? When's the first time you heard it?
Within the last 12 months, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, what did you think when you heard it?
I liked it. But
you probably have a type about it. Yeah, hear this and say, I don't know, man. I'm just talking. Half of shit I say, it's just here right now. If you ask me the same question 5 minutes later, I'll probably give you a different answer. I don't know.
Like so many singer-songwriters that emerged around that time were labelled with that new Bob Dylan tag, and I guess you probably drew comparisons because of songs like Judas Iscariot, which harkens back to Dylan's Frankie Lee and Judas Priest. Did that label sit okay with you at the time?
Yeah, because actually that song, when I first wrote that song, it's on another one of those records, the one I made with Jim Dickinson, Keep on Burning. It's on there too, and it's in a totally different musical style. It's the way it is on the Vanguard album, the Judas Iscariot. I did it like that on purpose. Originally, when that song first came to me, it was like an old Southern Memphis Delta blues type of song, ragtime blues or something, almost like San Francisco Bay Blues or something. One of those. It's a standard little ragtime tune, chord progression.
Yeah.
That's the way I heard it. I dreamed it. I had a dream, and that whole song just came to me in a dream. And I woke up in the middle of the night and wrote it all down. So, and I had that kind of little tune to it, like Jim Dickinson. I learned that kind of tune from him. And then, as the years, when I wrote that song probably like in '69 or something. Well, by '72, when I actually put it on the record, I had decided to do it this other way, which, like you said, it's from Bob Dylan's Frankie Lee and Judas, that same progression.
Mm.
And I did it like that on purpose because I figured he used the name Judas and made up a story about Judas, but he stole that word, that name, but then he made up his own story about it. So I'm going to tell the real story about Judas. I'm going to steal his chord progression. And see, that's kind of how I'm playing games with all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what that was. But actually, it does sound better that way. It has more, it fits the lyrics better. It's more expressive than the original way I heard it. So, but that's why it's like that. And, yeah, I've heard people tell me, the Bob Dylan thing. And although at the very time I did that, that album came out, nobody was saying that about Bob Dylan. That's something they stuck onto it later. Nobody actually compared me to Bob Dylan like that. You know where that came from?
No.
I'm going to tell you where I think this came from. I had a website that I put up in 2000 when I just decided to come back and make records, and I was retiring from this job I'd had for like 30 years, and I was going to go back into music, so I made a website. My daughter and her husband helped me set up a website. So I was telling these stories on this website about music and places I played and different things. And I had this story on there, and I headlined it Southern Bob Dylan in big letters with the quotes around it or something like that as a part of this website. And that's probably the first time anybody ever even compared me to Bob Dylan in print. What it was when I was playing in Memphis in a coffee house in about 1963 or something. I played something with Sabres in Our Hands. That's that song. Jim Dickinson loved that song. When I asked him to help me make the album in 2002, he said, okay, but you got to put that song on it. He even recorded it with another guy playing it, singing it. That's the guy that shot a hole in the ceiling at the end of the song. But he carried guns in the studio and shot up the studio after he finished singing. But so when I was playing that song, Sabres in Our Hands, and I went over, sat at the table, Jim Dickinson, and this other guy from Memphis, King Ryder, he was sitting there, and he turned to Dickinson, he said, this guy's like a Southern Bob Dylan. He said that about me to Jim Dickinson. He said, he's a Southern Bob Dylan. But Dickinson didn't really say anything. He just kind of sat there and grinned. And so I used that line that this guy actually said, and I put it in big, bold letters in this website I had. But that was like in 2000 or something. So from people, I think that's what actually started that, because I don't think you're going to find any press that came out back then that compared me to Bob Dylan.
Okay.
Because they would have more likely compared me to people like John Prine or Guy Clark or Townes Van Zandt or some of these other guys that were writing songs at that time like I was. They were more likely compared me to, or sometimes they would compare me to Gordon Lightfoot and Ian Tyson, because I used chord progressions like they did, and I sang in a way that was kind of imitating how they sang. I tried to sound like them, I think. So they compared me to that. Somebody might have compared me to Bob Dylan, but I don't think I ever really saw anything like that. But I kind of started that myself. I made that. I just did. Well, the thing is, Bob Dylan, I liked Bob Dylan a lot. And, I mean, everybody that writes songs, or even that didn't write songs, liked Bob Dylan. And like one of my friends said, he was the genius of his generation. Everybody has to deal with that some way or another, some level or other, Well, that sort of struck me like, yeah, maybe he was. But at the same time, I was very envious of this guy. So I had this kind of... And I used to think, why is this guy so popular? and he can't even sing. It sounds like he's got to take a shit or something. He says, Harry, it's So I really didn't like him at all, but then I had to listen to him, and the more I listened to him, I thought, yeah, this guy's a fucking genius, man. So then I really liked his stuff a lot. So I had these extremely mixed attitudes. So if somebody said I compared me to Bob Dylan, it's just kind of, it's meaningless. I don't know. Anybody. It doesn't matter.
So
who's that guy? I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
That's good. I love it. So walking away from music when you did, was that very much a financial-based decision? You just needed to make a living?
When I did what?
When you walked away from music way back then?
Oh. I was still trying to do music. Even after they had sort of like tanked my whole Vanguard record, I was still, my friend Cletus Haggard, who co-wrote songs with me and co-produced the Vanguard record, and we were co-writers together at Tree Publishing, and he was kind of like my manager at that point. He got me some gigs going across the country, across the Southwest. I went through Texas, Arizona, and so forth, Southern California, and came up the coast, and by the time I got to Oakland, we'd run out of gigs, and so I was staying at some friend's house that I had some friends that lived in Oakland, so I was staying with them, and my wife, we had one baby already who was only a year old, about a year and a half old. She was also pregnant. We were living in a little van. It was like a surfer van that we got from some little old lady in Pasadena. And we were living in that and traveling around. We had no money. We didn't know where we were going. We had one kid, another one on the way. We were in Oakland, and I said, let's go to Wyoming. So let's go out to Montana City. I want to get out in the mountains. She said, I'm not going anywhere. She said, we have one kid. I'm pregnant. We only got $40. She said, I'm not going. So then I had to go down and try to get a job or apply for welfare or do something. And I didn't have any choice. I never make choices. I never plan ahead. You ask me, what are my plans? I didn't have any plans back then. For a career, I didn't know. I didn't even know what the word meant. Like I said, I just wanted to smoke weed, drink beer, and write songs. And so my wife was letting me do that, so it worked. But then, living like that, pretty soon, we were broke and had kids, so I had to go get a job. I had no choice. Go on a GI Bill and go to school and get money from that, or go to welfare office or somewhere. Eventually, I worked myself into getting a regular job so I could raise kids, and by then we had a couple more kids. We would have had about 2 or 3 more, but my wife had miscarriage. She had like one or two miscarriages, and I don't know. We were very fertile. I never could figure it out. I tried every damn position I could think of, and she still got pregnant. I couldn't figure out what was causing it.
So, during all those years, were you still writing songs?
I'll pause for a while.
That's all right.
What?
Did you
sometimes I have a problem to understand. Do you have a problem understanding what I'm saying?
No, not at all.
I mean, the accent. Does the accent?
No, the accent.
Strange.
Absolutely fine. No worries at all.
Because I do not understand the Australian accent very well. I have to listen to it very closely because it is such a strong, to me, it is so strong and peculiar in its own way. I mean, once I get into it, I understand how they do it, okay? But if you just hit me with this, so I know what? That's why I can't hear very well. So there's 2 things going against me hearing you clearly, and one is I can't hear, and the other is the Australian accent. But yours is not really as strong as some of them.
No, it's not what they call an Ocker accent. No, I don't have that. So,
what else did you want to ask me? Am I wasting too much time just rambling around talking shit?
No, it's no problem. You're doing well. Were you still writing songs during those years away?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I never quit writing songs. I never quit doing that. I always considered myself a professional songwriter, even though I wasn't getting any money from it. I was getting a little bit. I had songs recorded by Chris Ledoux. Chris Ledoux was a cowboy. He was a world champion rodeo rider. And he also made records, and he sang. His daddy owned a record company in Nashville, and every year they'd make a new album of him. It was in the early 70s. They'd make an album, and he'd sell them at the rodeos.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris put I wrote cowboy songs. I wrote a lot of cowboy songs early on. And then he put one of my cowboy songs on every one of his first 6 records. And one of them actually was recorded. It's been recorded 2 or 3 times. Gary McMahon, another yodeling cowboy from Colorado, recorded it, and a bar band in Colorado back in the 80s. The Starlight Ramblers. They were a popular band in the bars in Colorado. They recorded it. I've had a lot of songs like that, cowboy songs recorded, but I didn't make any money off them. But anyway, so all this time, all through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, all the time, I'm always writing songs. Sometimes I would go to an open mic, or I'd go play at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, or I had a little band. I had my own little band in the 70s, called them the Hardheads. Bob Frank and the Hardheads, they're the ones that said I said, what are we going to call it? And then one of them, we always argue. We get together to play songs. We spend half the time arguing about shit. And they said, well, just call us the Hardheads. I said, okay, that's you guys. I'm Bob Frank. You guys are the Hardheads. And so the one guy played bass and one guy played fiddle. And then we'd go to these clubs in Berkeley and Oakland and places and play music. And, and I'm always writing songs. That's just what I do.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to figure this out. People would say, you're just a natural songwriter. And Jim Dickinson and my wife and Cletus Haggard, all these people I knew, Gary McMahon, they all said, you're just a natural songwriter. But what it is it's just like it just comes natural to me. And the best songs that I write, I don't even think about them. They just come out. I just sit down and start playing, and the song just comes out. 30 years to write a song. I just not happy, and I'll just, it's like a crossword puzzle or something. I'll just sit there and play with all the different ways I could say this. So I'm always writing these songs. I never quit doing that. I just had this job because I had to make a living. And I was working outdoors. I couldn't stand to be working indoors. I couldn't be wearing a suit and a tie. I couldn't do anything like that. I had to go outdoors. So what I was doing, I was working for the city of Oakland, and I was outdoors doing irrigation work in all the parks and the medians and the ball fields and all that. I was digging trenches and laying pipe, fixing sprinkler heads and controllers. Ditch digger. So he wrote that in a biography of mine. Bob spent 30 years being a ditch digger. Because actually that's what you do. When you're working irrigation, you're digging a lot of trenches to lay all that pipe. Usually you have a machine to do it, but sometimes you don't anyway. So that's what I did. I just did physical work. I couldn't go sit down in an office and do shit like that. I don't know. I wasn't able to do it. So I just went out and did that. And it wasn't because I wanted to do it. It was because I didn't have any choice. I don't want to do nothing.
Tell us about John Murray, who you've been working with, and his background and how you came in touch.
John Murray?
Yeah.
John Murray came from Mississippi. A friend of ours, a mutual friend back in Memphis, told him when he came out here, he said, look up Bob Frank. He plays music and writes songs. And John had been playing in a group. He played a couple of different groups, the Dillingers and another one. I can't remember. I don't know. Started with a V or something. I don't know. He played in a couple of different groups. Then he came out here and he hooked up with me. And the first few years we were together, or the first year or so, he was basically just backing me up and playing guitar and stuff. And then we got a couple of other people that play some keyboards and drums and bass. And we had a little group. And John was getting me gigs because I never knew how to get gigs. He was good at getting gigs. And he got the band together. And we were playing my songs. I was doing all the singing and they were just playing. And then at one point John said, why don't we make an album of murder ballads? And so the idea at first was we're going to go make an album of all these old murder ballads, So then John said, let's write new murder ballads, but they'll be on true stories, actual stories that happened back in in American history, from way on back, 1700s all the way up to now. And we'll write them like they were just written by people in those days, in that time. And they won't have to be factually correct because murder, you just write them, you hear it, and then they write it down, and they don't even hear the whole story, and they're not really trying to reproduce the whole story. They're just using it to write a little song. So that's what we did, and we had, based on fact, And then we just took off and wrote these songs. So that's when we made that Murder Ballads. The album was called World Without End. We made that.
Mm-hmm.
That was basically John's idea. He wanted to do that. I said, fine, I love to write story songs. And just give me an opportunity. He was very serious about writing songs because he was afraid of death, and he wanted to psychologically, he thought if he wrote these songs, it would give him an opportunity to get this out of him, somehow this fear, to confront this fear or something like that, some kind of psychological, existential reason for writing them. But I myself, I said, I don't give a fuck about all that. I used to write story songs. Let's just get these stories and write some songs about them. That sounds great. So that's what we did. Then after that, or actually while we were doing that, I had a tape or a little disc or some recordings of all these sort of rock pop songs that I'd written. They were like love songs or broken love affair songs.
Oh, yeah.
And I had played them for people, and nobody understood. They thought they were some kind of weird folk music. But John figured out right away, this is not folk music. So then he understood. So he said, let's make an album of these. So then we made an album of love songs. And then we called that one the Brinkley, Arkansas. And that's when actually Tim Mooney, the guy who produced it, said, this is Brinkley, Arkansas and other assorted love songs. And they made a play off of Eric Clapton's Layla and other assorted love, something like that. I mean, I'm not even real familiar with that album, but they were taking the cover of it and remaking the cover and using the title of it and doing all this, which I didn't really want to do that. I'd rather do something original, an original name for the title and an original artwork, but they wanted to do it. At that point, I didn't even care. Do whatever you want. I don't care. All I want to do is write songs and sing and do whatever you want with it. So that's what they did. Then we went to Europe on a tour together. But whoever the guy was in Europe that was taking care of this stuff, he just took all the money and never gave us any of it. He kept saying, send me 300 albums, and I'd send him 300 albums, and they'd disappear, and I'd never make any money off of them. So that didn't work too well.
Mm.
And then, we made a couple other things. We made that one that was called the Gunplay EP. We did that little album, and then John produced that one I sent you that's not made into an album. I call it the Scenic Route, like 15 songs. And those songs are songs I've written ever since 1969 to 2010 or something. They were just a lot of different songs, and I thought I wanted to record them at some point. So John produced that album. He didn't actually produce the other two. Tim Mooney mostly produced the other two. John helped him produce them. This time John wanted to produce the whole thing. I don't know what's going on. I said, go ahead. So that's my experience with John Murray.
Hmm. What about performing on stage, Bob? Are you a different person on stage now to what you were back in the 70s?
Am I a different person?
On stage, yeah. You got a different stage persona now to what you did back then?
No. The only difference is I'm not drunk all the time now, so I'm more coherent about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. When I played back then, I really didn't play the guitar that well.
Mm.
I probably played it well enough to present the songs or something, but not well enough to suit me when I would think about how I'd watch other people play and listen to them. Other people like me, like John Prine or whoever. These other people that I've been compared to all the time, Guy Clark, and those other singer-songwriters. I thought, man, these guys actually play the guitar better than me. That's what I thought. I don't know if they did or not, but I thought that. And I thought I didn't really have much confidence about my guitar playing, but I like to play the songs anyway. The thing is, I've always been on stage. Since I was a kid, I was in plays in high school. I was in a song contest, and so I had a group all through high school. I was playing songs with I had a duet with one guy. And then he graduated, and then another guy and we played like Kings and Trio songs, and we played songs for girl sorority parties and stuff. I'd go there and I'd play pop songs and folk songs, and I've always been doing this. The worst I ever did it was when I get really stoned, because when I was stoned, I really couldn't even do it right. I think I was too paranoid or too self-conscious. I think they call it paranoid, but I call it self-conscious. I was just so aware of everything I was doing and so critical or so I couldn't relax and just do it, so it didn't sound as, it wasn't as good as I could do it. But I haven't really changed any of that. It's just there. It's just like natural songwriting. I just naturally get up on stage and do shit, and I just say whatever I want to say and play whatever I want to play, and usually it works because I don't know. It's just I just know how to do it. I don't know. It's not anything I figured out. It's just natural. It's just a natural ability. It's kind of like, you know, you see Red Fox. You ever watch Red Fox? Red Fox just goes on stage. He don't even have to say anything. Even people start laughing. He just walks out there and they laugh. And so really what my act really is, which Dickinson told me a long time ago, and I didn't understand that either. He said, your strongest thing is your comedy. And it actually is. I mean, I write a lot of serious songs. I try to write serious songs, and I want to sing, play serious songs and shit. And I do it. But what really keeps people's attention in between all this shit, it's just my whole attitude. And then I'll play funny songs. I have some funny songs. And I just have sort of a humorous persona up there. You know, the whole thing is it's just kind of like, one guy said, even when you do something wrong, it sounds right, because you're kind of like Johnny Carson or something. He says, you're so personable or something. It is the people can't not like it or something. I don't know what he meant, but anyway, somebody else told me that. So, no, I haven't changed any of that. That's just kind of how I am.
Yeah.
I don't really change the way I write songs. Like Jim Dickinson said, here's a guy who's writing the songs the same way he was 50 years ago. He said, well, that's just what I do. It's really, I'm not bragging. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you. That's just how it is.
It's just you, yeah. One last question before I let you go, Bob. If you could go back to the early 70s and have a chat with young Bob Frank about to record that first record, what advice would you give him?
What advice would I give him? That's a hell of a good question. I think I heard Art Garfunkel doing that on YouTube or something. I would tell him, I would say, he wouldn't listen to me, though. He wouldn't pay attention. He'd go, yeah, okay, whatever. But here's what I tell him. Don't smoke so much weed when you go play music.
Mm.
And the thing is, I mean, I can't really tell that guy anything because he was doing what he was doing. It was, you know, what I wouldn't do now is be getting drunk and smoking a lot of weed if I'm going to go on stage. I wouldn't want to do that. But he wanted to do that. So to tell him not to do that, that'd be just like telling him to turn into somebody else. It's just sort of a fruitless thing to tell to play that little game. Is kind of meaningless. But anyway, yeah, so I would tell him, I think I'd just tell him, you know, good luck, pal. What can I tell him? I don't know. I mean, you know, I would just tell him there's no such thing as duality. That's what I'd tell him. I'd tell him there is no inherent existence anywhere. And you don't have any self that you think you have. And you're not who you think you are. You're not your body. That's what I'd tell him.
Mm.
Look for something else. Trying to find out who you really are. That's what I would tell him. This music comes and goes. Look for something that's permanent. That's what I'd tell him.
Hey, Bob, thanks so much. It's been a real treat speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
John, thank you, man. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you going to put this on your radio station, or what is this for?
Yeah, that's the plan, yep. It'll probably be
Well, can you send me a link to it when you do it so I'll be able to...
I'll do that for you.
Goes?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably sometime in December it'll go to air, and I'll let you know.
Are you going to have to edit it and fix it up, make a little thing of it, and then put it on?
I might tinker around with it a little bit, but I like to just let my interviews go to air as they are, as much as I can.
Okay, but could I just ask you, whenever you get it ready that it's going to go on there, will you send it to me so I'll know what it is that's going to go on there?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay, good.
Will do.
Well, I hope I didn't get too sidetracked and talk about stuff you weren't interested in.
No. It was fantastic. No, you've given me plenty, Bob. It's fantastic. And I'll certainly let you...
Well, I really appreciate you doing this, John. It's very nice of you to do this, and because I'm an old guy and I don't get that much press, you know. Nobody knows who I am. But Australia, I think a lot of guys down there would like what I do because that's kind of Yeah, that was some of my favorite songs back when I was first playing folk music and stuff. Was Australian songs. I learned all those old fucking Australian songs. They were like Irish songs, but they were kind of transplanted.
Yeah.
I loved that music. When I got drunk in Sydney, went to the bars, I was in there singing all these old songs. Jack Dugan was his name. All of those Australian songs. We started out from Roto, and the shed was all cut out with whips and whips of money, and we meant to push about. So we humped our blues serenely, and we made for Sydney town with a 3-spot check between us, who was wanting knocking down. So I sang. I would sing any kind of Australian songs. I love that shit. So it's a great pleasure and a privilege for me to do this with you.
Yeah.
And I just hope it works out well for you.
No, likewise, Bob. It's been fantastic. Thanks again for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.